Yo, guys, RDS here, back again for another show. Sorry, guys, it's been quite some time. Yeah, just been busy. And to be honest, I'll be honest, it's been nice to actually take a break from Manchester United. Yes, I know we won our last game. I get it, but it's been nice because I'll keep it a stack. It's not looking good. It's not looking good when we get back from the international break. So let me enjoy this break for Manchester United. But before we get into it, if you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter. We are United X, and smash the notification button. Based Manchester United. Big up Rasmus and big up everyone who's watching. Make sure you like the video, and subscribe. Big up Matthew, man. Evening all. And this is going to be very relaxed, very chilled. I've obviously not had enough time to really this week really give my thoughts on obviously what has been quite a oh well, hey, we got a guest, guys, we got a guest appearance. It's been confirmed big old Tom the journalist may actually be able to come on the show, so I'm going to send him a link, and we might be able to get Tom on, and he'll be there to hopefully answer some of your questions. Obviously Tom has been going through quite a lot with his family, you know, so, and I wish him all the best. But he's got some spare time to come on to answer some questions. So yeah, I'm going to send him a link now, and hopefully we'll see him in a bit. So yeah, thanks for that, Tom. But yeah, I mean, the gist of this show, and obviously I'm sure Tom, if he comes, will give us some details, is the fact that according to Reuters reports, that don't fall for English in media spin. I'm not falling for English media spin, but I have to report the news. And the reality is that obviously Sheikh, JIM, Qatar, all of that's gone. It's not happening at all anymore. It is now about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and it looks like the 25% INEOS deal is coming close. It's probably going to be, I suspect, I mean, according to Reuters, it's going to be announced soon. I suspect it's going to be announced before the end of the international break, probably the next few couple of days or so. So as to basically get get things moving is what I would probably say. Obviously, this is for 25%. When Tom comes on, if he comes on, I want to kind of ask a bit more detail in terms of how that works, because I think a lot of United fans think that it's 25%. The Glazers are selling 25% of their controlling stake, but from my understanding, it's they're getting 25%. He's the stock. The 25% is a combination of the Glazers shares and also the remaining shares that everybody else holds. So actually, the Glazers are still holding. I think probably still a good 50, just over 50% of the club. Which is interesting. You know, they're still going to have, you know, majority say, majority control over Manchester United, which is to be expected. And at the end of the day, when you've got, you know, a good billion, I mean, if you're the Glazers, and I was saying this a bit, if you're the Glazers, this is a win-win. You know, the whole thing is a win-win because you have a situation where, you know, this is what the Glazers wanted. They wanted investment, and they got investment. They got the ultimate minority investment into Jim Ratcliffe. Now I'm going to bring in Tom, bring him in, and wish him well. So let's just do this. Oh, Tom Body, long time no see, man. How you doing?
Yeah. Long time, G, as always. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, thanks for having me back on for a long time anyway and everything. But yeah, it's good to be back and everything. And yeah, I hope you're well, mate.
No, I'm doing good, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And like I said, like I'm just wishing yourself and your family the best. I'm sure you've obviously been keeping an eye on what's been going on at Manchester United. So I guess for those of us that are completely uneducated about the whole process, I was going to go for the Reuters article. So, but now that you're here, and just for obviously listening to viewers, how is this whole 25% shareholder takeover, all these things, that the way that Jim Ratcliffe is doing, how's it basically all going to work out?
Sure. Well, the way that I understood it anyway from a couple of days ago was that Ratcliffe had structured, well, he'd restructured his bid so it included the minority investors. In this case, so the likes of your Linzo Trains, M&S Capitals, he's going to buy percentages off of the family with the Class B voting rights, but he's also going to buy Class A shares as well, because it means that everybody makes money out of the pot. So effectively, everybody's a winner, and he gets 25% of Manchester United, so he gets a foot in the door to then eventually try and buy the football club over time and just buy more shares year after year. But the thing and how it's going to work is that so Jim Ratcliffe will buy a percentage of each of the shares. It's more inclined that he will buy more of the family shares based upon he has the want to go to full control. He wants majority ownership of Manchester United, which will be the eventual, opening and buying out all of the 69% that the Glazer family own. So effectively, the way that the deal will work concurrently, it might be a simple case of he buys 15% of the family shares, but he gains sporting control from the family. So he controls football operations at Manchester United, him and INEOS, but he will also buy, for example, this is just this isn't the exact figures or anything, but this is what a theory of what could happen. And he might buy 10% of the minority stakeholders' shares via New York Stock Exchange for, say, what Reuters are reporting here, $33 per share. And the share price is obviously going to fluctuate from day to day, but the agreement price has to come in based upon that they have to regulate it so that all minority investors who buy shares and stock in Manchester United know exactly what they're going to make pinpoint from their shares being bought out. So the way it works is Ratcliffe basically buys a bit from everybody. So he avoids the legal trouble that we discussed, weeks and months ago. So he's avoided that hurdle, which was the biggest hurdle for his bid. And he also buys shares of the family, which the family will be happy with. They make a bit of money on the side, but they also still control and own Manchester United. And then they also, in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's case, he sees it as a win because he has his foot in the door. He will be in control of the most important side of what he would claim to Manchester United, which is the football operations. And then from there, he aims to try and buy the rest of the shares in 69% over the coming years. But that roadmap yet hasn't currently been outlined or really put out into the public eye. So because of the NDA agreement that's in place and in principle, we don't know the dates, we don't know the figures, if there are any figures, as to what he will buy them out for in a couple of years, unless when they make the announcement, which is expected in the next 48 hours to 72 hours, then there might be a clear outline as to say that, you know, we're aiming to, you know, the Glazer family might put a statement, we're aiming to leave by 2025, or, you know, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has put a roadmap in place where he'll concurrently buy shares over the next every 6 months until he gains full control. So it depends ultimately on what the family have agreed to and what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is happy to go along with. But the one thing that I always knew from the very beginning with Ratcliffe was, if it didn't involve an eventual path to buying the entirety of the football club, he wasn't interested. So there must be a roadmap in it, or there must be something that interests him to go down this route. Otherwise, he would have withdrawn his bid along with Sheikh Jassim.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think a lot of obviously we've got some skepticism from Elias in the chat, and warranted, and that's warranted because obviously we don't know what Ratcliffe's bid is going to entail. But I think that is interesting you say that, because I think a lot of, and even myself, were thinking, you're thinking, right, okay, the Glazers got what they wanted. They've got the minority investment they wanted. They can make tons of money. Was Sir Jim Ratcliffe almost got the wall put in front of his eyes in terms of, was he ever really gonna get a full takeover? But I think United fans are probably will be more optimistic if there is a genuine pathway for him to take over the football club and get rid of the Glazers in time. And because, as I said to people, I keep this stuck. The only real reason why Sir Jim has enmity towards him now is because Qatar were in the race. If Qatar were in the race before, when it was just Sir Jim was the only one that was rumored to really be involved, etc., the reality is that most United fans, I mean, they're saying, yeah, Sir Jim, listen, they were taking it. It's like, yeah, if it's going to be a minority, they would take it. So really, the anger is more so about the anger is really more so about the fact that Qatar were going to get rid of them immediately, pay off the debt, invest, all these things, big money, etc., then really it being specifically at Sir Jim. But you're kind of alluding to the fact that, like, Sir Jim wouldn't have accepted this or pursued this offer, this deal, without essentially having assurances that a clearance to a full takeover was possible.
Yeah. Well, the way that he always structured it was he wanted control of United. That's what he wanted coming into this. And control to him is 69% of Manchester United, which was all of the family being bought out. Those were Sir Jim Ratcliffe's plans and intentions. And along the line, and I don't know why it's changed or why it's moved in this way, and the only person who will know is INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself, why they've gone down this road in this way. And we might find out over the coming weeks and months as to what really transpired in negotiations and with the family, really. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact of that the family always had a price in mind that they wanted to sell for. And the rumour was it was around £6 billion that they wanted for the entire football club of their shares, for which Sheikh Jassim paid a premium and put in premium offers over double the asking price of the New York Stock Exchange for what their rating said United was worth. He was prepared to pay double the exchange rates, and the family still turned it down. So clearly, the sort of money that the Glazer family were looking at more towards they how can I put it? The family looked at United more towards its future, not its current state. That was their selling point. United's future is, in the Glazer family's mind, we're a £10 billion football club in 5-6 years. That's how the Glazer family view Manchester United. It will be the first, maybe behind Real Madrid, to be the first double-digit billion-pound football club. That's how they envy and look at Manchester United. So in Sheikh Jassim's case, he's not going to pay £8 to £10 billion for
Mm.
a football club that isn't worth £8 to £10 billion.
Mm.
You're only prepared to pay for something for what it's worth, and if you don't believe it's worth those odds right now, you don't pay it.
Mm.
So Sheikh Jassim put incredible bids and offers to buy Manchester United,
Mm.
and if I'm being completely honest with you, if it was any smart or savvy businessman, and you take United in the state that it's in now, and the need for it, the investment that it needs, a lot of other football owners in not just even in the Premier League, but in world football would have taken the Sheikh Jassim offer, just
Mm.
based upon the amount of capital that was available for effectively a stagnating business. It's not been a success, but it's
Mm.
also not gone to a complete bust and it's a failure financially, because
Mm.
United will always make money. That's the one
Mm.
thing that you can never fail and will never stop with Manchester United. It will
Mm.
always make money. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, with how Ratcliffe's gone about it, yeah, it's going to alienate Manchester United fans because it, complicits and it keeps the family involved in the football club.
Mm.
But the one thing that the family always had was they had the price in mind that they wanted to sell for, and
Mm.
they believe that keeping hold of United right now is the best option and solution going forward, because they believe that they'll get a bigger valuation to be bought out in the future.
Mm.
And like we say, we don't know the roadmap that Sir Jim might have put in place. He might offer them upwards of £8 billion over 5-6 years, if
Mm.
need be. Or
Mm.
it might just be a case of that Ratcliffe looks at it and thinks, well, if I buy 25% now, get the foot in the door, and then I will just buy most of the shares year after year after year until it stagnates up to me buying them out completely. So
Mm.
effectively, it's buy it little by little until you get all the way to the top of the tree, and
Mm.
then you become the king suddenly. But the
Mm.
way that Ratcliffe views it is the investment that he's made now, he's overpaid for what it would take to buy 25% of Manchester United. But the
Mm.
reason being why he's done it is it means and it enables him to have control of, sporting control and football operations at Manchester United.
Mm.
That's the reason why he's prepared to overpay. It means he controls half of the business, which is the football club. He
Mm.
controls the football club. The Glazer family own the control commercial operations at Manchester United. That's it. So effectively, he's overpaid based upon the principles of he's going to be in operation of one half of the business, which he sees as a valuable asset in the way that he will want to take Manchester United forward, should and will he go and proceed on to buying the rest of the football club. So
Mm.
effectively, he can put his blueprint so far on the football operations, but any commercial deal that he wants to sign off or try and bring in sponsors with, he won't be able to do because he's not in operation of that in that character. So it would be a
Mm.
negotiation struggle with the family, and if they're willing to meet and agree on it. But the only way that we can look at it from what we see now is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to come in. He's going to take sporting control of Manchester United, and I think a lot of people are looking at what is his actual blueprint and what his plan is to do for Manchester United. Ineos's mindset's always been that they were going to come in, they were going to review the internal runnings of the football club, both from a commercial and football standpoint.
Mm.
And after 60 days, they were going to make changes if they see fit that they need to be done. But
Mm.
one of them, more or less, the biggest one in the football club, in the CEO's position, he's gone now already. In Richard
Yeah.
Arnold, he's already
Hold on for
stepping
that.
down.
Hold on for that because we're going to talk about that in a second. Because you're right. So, but just oh, sorry. Let me just a second. I'm saying the Glazers got what they wanted. It looks like Sir Jim will bring in own team in, but where does that leave into? Yeah. So we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So just I guess just to I think we'll move on to that because it's a nice sort of segue. But I guess just final sort of piece. Is there I guess just with the thought of Sir Jim obviously getting 25% of the club, what would you expect with this type of deal, the time frame for him to potentially complete the full takeover? Like, are we talking something like this could happen in in years, in a few years, several years? What do you think?
If I'm being honest, based upon the sort of valuation that Sheikh Jassim bid and the family rejected it, he's got to offer them more money later down the line. And if he's offering them more money later down the line, the credit roll for to Jim Ratcliffe won't stretch that long for it to be within a year. So if I had to put a stamp on it from what I know from a financial point of view, when myself, I've borrowed money from banks to make investments, and then you repay the loan through interest, and the interest rates that are on top of the loan. Based upon what I know from that sort of sphere, is that it would have to be over years. And if I'm being completely honest with you, if he's going to put money into United to build, improve the infrastructure, as well as try and improve the team on the field, it's going to be a lot longer, based upon that he also wants to put money into United, but he also then wants to eventually buy the whole football club out. So there's a lot of money that's required with the way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going about this deal. But by going about this deal, it means that he won the race for the football club. And he gave the family the option to stay for a little bit longer. He's given them 25% worth of the football club in a valuation deal, effectively. And he also removes the one thing that the family have always been criticised for, which is they don't know how to run the football club. So, effectively, the family have got a lot of things on their tick list that they would have wanted. They've been able to bin the football operations. They've been able to get investment in that they were looking for. And also, overall, they get to keep control of the football club. So, effectively, it's a win-win situation for the family. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe looks at it as a moral victory, based upon that he's going to be in day-to-day control of the football operations at United. But it's not just about having control of the operations. It's about what actually comes with this control. Is it that he has full say over every single football decision? So if he wanted to get rid of Ericsson Haag tomorrow, can he do it? If he wanted to bring in, XYZ player, can he do it without needing the sign-off of the family? These are the things that we don't know, and we don't know how watertight this sporting control deal is until we know the specifics of it. So, for example, if Ratcliffe's able to bring in his own CEO, which in many cases is being rumoured to be Jean-Claude Blanc, which obviously we'll get into in a bit, then you would look at that from that perspective and say he's in control because he's brought in his own CEO, even though he doesn't own the whole football club. And the CEO is a split role. It has a hand in the football operations, but it also has a hand in the commercial operations at United. So it's almost like Jean-Claude Blanc, in this case, to use as an example, would be a middleman between INEOS and Ratcliffe and the family, but he would run the football club. That's the way internally that it would look. But the makeshift up of it is that nobody's been appointed yet. And like I said before, the plan for INEOS, if they won the race and won the bidding to come into United, was they wanted to do a 60-day review of all of the football club, do a full audit of the football club, and then where they see fit to make changes, they were wanting to remove people and put people in that they believe in their quoting eyes is the best people that they have trust and faith in to make Manchester United a success. But the way that it is right now, they don't need to do one of those audits on one of those more senior positions in the CEO because Richard Arnold's already said he's stepping down at the end of 2023. So effectively, you've almost, in this case, it's almost as if he's walked before he's been pushed. And really, in the end all, Ratcliffe has, I guess, saved himself a bit of time, but in many cases, I think INEOS would have always had somebody that they would have had in the prime, spotlight, really, to go into the football club and be the CEO at the end of the day.
Fair enough, G. Thanks for that, Tom. Now let's quickly move on to where did I put that link? Sorry, 2 seconds. 2 seconds. But yeah, as you're talking about, obviously, news of Richard Arnold resigning or being sacked, which one you want to call it. So at the end of the day, he's probably got a fairly good pay package, and he'll be loving his life. So regardless, as you said, he has been. I get the impression that John Murtaugh is probably going to be next, but I could be wrong. But it looks like he's probably going to be on his way out. And as you said, the rumor is that Jean-Claude Blanc, I think it is rumored to be potentially to new CEO. I'm just going to get Fabrizio's tweet out so when I can find it. But before, as I'm trying to find it, what would you? So I think first of all, comment on the room. If I'm asking Tom, comment on the rumors, and also what do you think that? I've read a bit about him, about how he helped Juventus, for example, through their relegation situation, rebuilding them back to where they want to be. Which, I mean, to be fair, given where Manchester United are, that's probably actually a good thing. We're effectively playing like a relegation football club at this point. But so I guess commenting on the rumors, what's the likelihood that he's going to replace them, and then also what do you think he could give to Manchester United in that kind of CEO position, if that makes any sense?
Yeah. With Jean-Claude Blanc as an individual, he's one of the most influential people in football. But the difference with Jean-Claude Blanc is his experience is football business. He understands the business side of football. That's the one thing that I always knew and know with Jean-Claude Blanc. If you go to a UEFA, summit regarding rule changes to UEFA, or the business financial structure so that you get more money if you qualify for the Champions League, for example, Jean-Claude Blanc will be Manchester United's representative at those meetings, based upon he has that experience in that etiquette. And with him as an individual, based upon the rumours, he's the in-frame candidate to take over from Richard Arnold and come into Manchester United in that CEO role. But even if he didn't come into the CEO role, I'd be shocked if he isn't at least offered a role within United, even if that's consultancy or on the board. Because the way that it's looking likely is, with how Jean-Claude Blanc's conducted himself as an individual within football, there's sort of, how can I say, really, in world football, there's three big names that people associate as influential people in football and the actual running of European football. Those are Nasser Al-Khelaifi because of his connections within UEFA and also PSG. Florentino Perez, based upon he has the biggest, he's the president of the biggest club within Spain. And also then you have someone like Jean-Claude Blanc, who's ran within PSG as a general manager and chief executive, and he's also been CEO of Juventus. So he had basically the biggest club in France, and when he went into PSG, they weren't. They were on par with Marseille, Lyon, all of these other French teams. But the one thing that he did was he took them as a brand and he put them on the world scale. The reason being, in the same light with Juventus, like you were saying, G, with the story when Juventus got relegated, they went back in. Jean-Claude Blanc took over the operations of the football club. But what he did was he ran the football operations for a year. He didn't do so well. It was not a success. He took a step back from football operations. He employed experts in that field and football and technical directors to run the football operations. And he said to those football influencers and said, what do you need to be successful in this football club? And the one thing those sporting directors and technical directors said to him was, we need as much money as we can to restructure and reshape the whole club. We need to start from scratch, effectively. And what Jean-Claude Blanc did was he signed multi-billion-pound sponsorship deals. He also signed long-term deals within Serie A, so that Juventus, should they qualify for the Champions League, they get extra revenue based upon they call it a legacy bonus within Italian football. So effectively, legacy bonus in many people, if you don't know what that means, is percentage of what place you make in Serie A effectively means you get an extra 25 million euros on top of wherever you finish in the league. Okay. But that 25 euros, if you don't qualify for the Champions League within Italy's rankings, you don't get any bonuses. That's the way that it works within Serie A. But it was a new formula that had only just come into Italian football the year before Jean-Claude Blanc went to Juventus. So effectively with him, he's a visionary man, and he has a world-renowned experience because he took PSG from, let's face it, a nobody French club, a Lyon or a Marseille, really a historical French club, and he turned them into a super giant as a brand. The reason why PSG have the stature as a brand that they have now is mainly down to Jean-Claude Blanc. But he didn't run the football operations within PSG. That's the difference. So he didn't sign the players, he signed the sponsorship deals. That's the difference. But PSG on that end of things was a success. In the same way with Juventus, as you said, was a relegated Italian club. He took them all the way from relegation, over years and years, build up deals where Juventus had more capital and more money, and then they blew away the rest of the competition for fun, year after year, winning Scudettos, competing within European football, signing the best players, keeping the actual contextness of the actual team. And he's a very influential and persuasive person. I mean, for example, you take Gianluca Buffon, for example. He wanted to leave Juventus in the year that Jean-Claude Blanc came into Juventus. But at that time, Jean-Claude Blanc persuaded Buffon, when they got relegated to Serie B, stay with us. This is the vision. This is the project. He persuaded one of the legendary figures that we look at legendary goalkeepers, really, in football, in Buffon, and he persuaded him to stay. And then he went on and won so many Scudettos and did the lot, really, with Italy and also with Juventus. But the big thing that I think a lot of people don't really give Jean-Claude Blanc much credit for is Juventus's new stadium that they have right now. He played a massive impactor in the actual structuring, but he got all of the finances in place so that Juventus didn't go broke as soon as they built the new stadium. So it didn't cripple them on the football side. And the way he did it was he got 3 different investments from 3 separate investment banks. He got loans from Bank of America. He got loans from a bank within Italy. I can't remember who it was. And then he got a line of credit from Credit Suisse at the time for, I think it was around about I can't remember if it was 60 or 70 million euros. And then they just completely restructured the whole stadium. But the way that it worked was he put the payments in place where Juventus, the revenues that they made year after year on the seasons, you take 20% of that and you give it to each of the banks and you pay back the loans. And then after 6 years of owning the new stadium, all of the loans were paid off. So Juventus effectively didn't owe any money. They've basically paid off the whole stadium, and also they don't owe any money to banks. So it's really a deal of the century, and they've got a modern stadium. The only stadium I'll add to mind that has ever been rebuilt within Serie A. And he's one of the most influential people as to why that actually happened. So the thing that you get with this guy is the experience, the contact list, but also his vision. And the thing with him is, if he comes into Manchester United, G, and I'll say this for all of Red Devil Studio, it's his vision. Anything that the club do will be because of this guy. Because he has a plan, not for 2 years, for 10 years. That's how this guy works. He doesn't work with months or 2 years. The way he looks at it is, football can take time to build. It takes time to build a new stadium, to build a winning team, to build brand deals. It takes time. But if you have that time, I can make you a vision and a plan. But everybody who's underneath him has to follow that same vision. So he will provide everything for the sporting department to make Manchester United a success. So the money that United need, so if that's, say, for example, in this summer window, United needed that extra £50 million to go and get another striker, Jean-Claude Blanc, with the way that he works and operates on the business side of the football club, he would make sure that £50 million is available.
So
but
my
it
question
doesn't mean that he makes the money.
So my question to that is, obviously, with the fact that the Glazers obviously are still a majority owners and still run the club, how easy would it be for Jean-Claude Van Damme and, Sir Jim Ratcliffe to initiate their vision when they're not, majority owners per se? Like, how likely will that be able to happen, if that makes any sense?
Yeah. Well, the way it would probably work, I presume anyway, is that Jean-Claude Blanc would come in under Sir Jim Ratcliffe's guidance and ownership, and he would lead the vision for making money on INEOS's behalf within Manchester United, so they can run the football operations. So effectively, he would take the seat as the CEO. He would make the money on behalf of INEOS and the football operations of United, so that effectively they have money to spend in the transfer market. They have money to spend on scouting networks, on players, on youth, on their youth program. Effectively, he would be INEOS's inside guy in United. But whoever knows, he might be given the controls by the family, even though he's an outsider. That's the difference. The family haven't ever worked with Jean-Claude Blanc before, the Glazer family. So putting your faith in somebody that you don't know, and somebody who's basically the guy of, I don't want to categorize him as a friend, but he's almost Sir Jim Ratcliffe's right-hand man. You bring him in, but you don't know this guy, and you didn't strike a deal with Jean-Claude Blanc, you struck a deal with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So you don't know how he works within the actual sphere of it. But if the family had any smart minds about it, I would, in my case, if I'm Joel Glazer and Avram Glazer, I would take a complete sit back. I'd sit in Tampa Bay, in Florida. I'd give Jean-Claude Blanc the keys to run all of Manchester United, because the thing with Jean-Claude Blanc is, not only would he make the recruitment team and the football structure within United money, so they can still reinvest in the team, men's, women's, and youth teams every single season, he would also make the Glazer family money as an ownership group. That's how this guy works. And he has the experience and credentials because he's done it all before. He built PSG from a nobody French club into one of the big European brands in world football. He took Juventus from relegation to multiple Scudetto titles, and he built them a new stadium from scratch. The guy's a genius in many cases, but it's his own vision. So if he comes into United, it's his vision that's going to seep through the whole football club. And the culture that will be set within United is based upon Jean-Claude Blanc. So if INEOS are to bring him in as the CEO, it won't be INEOS' plan. It will be Jean-Claude Blanc's plan. Because INEOS look at this guy and say he's a trusted football and business expert because he has the record to do it. And if INEOS didn't believe in this guy, why would they, as a company, appoint him to be their CEO and director of INEOS Sport? Of all of their sports, from cycling to football to sailing to everything. He runs the whole sporting operations for INEOS. So effectively, they trust the guy because they see him as one of the most influential figures within not just football, but within sport. That's how it is. You turn up to a football summit with Richard Arnold, a lot of people probably won't know who he is. You turn up with Jean-Claude Blanc, listen, he'll be cracking jokes with Nasser Al-Khalifi. He'll be sitting at the head table with Florentino Perez. That's how this guy is. That's the difference in what you're getting with this guy. So as many people said before about, as Gary Neville's sort of coining phrase of the best in class, he is one of the best in class people that you can get. And look, if INEOS weren't even buying Manchester United, let's just categorize it as Manchester United aren't even for sale, but Richard Arnold left tomorrow, Jean-Claude Blanc would be one of the people that I would recommend to be Manchester United CEO straight away. You'd put Jean-Claude Blanc on the list. You'd put Ralph Ragnick based upon his football credentials, and there'd be a couple of others that you'd probably put on the list. But the way that he runs football is he provides for everybody. And he provides for everybody because he's smart and he knows what he's doing. That's the difference. So if people don't want to trust Sir Jim Ratcliffe, that's completely understandable. If I'm being honest with you, as a Manchester United fan, I don't trust him. Not with the way that he's gone about buying the football club. But I would trust Jean-Claude Blanc based upon he has the experience and the track record of turning football clubs around. That's the way that I would look at it.
No, that's really interesting because, like I said, I think a lot of people are focusing on Sir Jim and what he's going to do. But you know what you're saying, I think, is very, very encouraging. I guess is also as well because I mean, United basically need someone like that. You know, I mean, you know, when we're talking about the fact that Juventus, they got relegated, he came up, he established PSG. United needs someone who can reestablish, reconstruct them again. And I do think it's interesting how if he does come in, you know, how we're and I don't know, and I ask you this, you know, well, actually, before I get to Jarvis's question, I'll ask you this, you know, with the murmurings that we're hearing about, you know, replacements of Murta and you know new contracts like you know Varane and Casemiro that's being disheveled. Is it something to be said that like they're already beginning to do things a bit behind the scenes in terms of the way that they're sort of dealing with players and you know and getting different people in different positions? I mean, there's obviously the fact that people saying that Paul Mitchell might be coming on board as well. Like, what's the kind of are we already seeing some of that stuff that you're saying like happening behind the scenes potentially?
Well, Ineos had always earmarked, for example, if we're going to the sporting director's position, as much as it takes that Richard Arnold would have probably most likely have been replaced by Ineos, or even by the Qataris should they have come in and bought United. The way that any new owner would have looked at it from either of the parties is they want their own CEO in place, but they want their own football director in place. And John Murtough, he isn't an Ineos sort of person.
No, of course not.
The way that I'd look at it with John Murtough is, if Ineos have a sporting position open within their sporting ranks, whether it's at one of their clubs in the Ineos Grenadiers team, or within Lausanne, within Nice as their football brands, they wouldn't employ John Murtough based upon he doesn't have the sports credentials. And football, he only has minimal credentials within as it is anyway. And the way you can look at that is, if John Murtough is to leave Manchester United, let's see where he actually ends up. Let's see if he gets another football director's job within world football. That's the way that you can categorise that. Whereas you take, for example, when you pointed the name out, like, for example, with Paul Mitchell's always been a name that's been bashed about within Ineos that they've liked as a sporting director. They looked at him as the sporting director for Nice when he was at AS Monaco, but the contract that he had with Monaco meant that he couldn't sign for another French club and run their scouting or football network until at least 12 months after he leaves Monaco and his contract runs out. So the way that he works, for example, now with Paul Mitchell, he's a free agent on the market. You can go out there and get Paul Mitchell if you want to. And he's not the only name that's been pointed out there. But there is other people, for example, Michael Edwards and Julian Wald, who ran Liverpool's scouting network, where they took, for example, the data analytics of football and they put it within Liverpool's system and how Jurgen Klopp wanted to play, and they found some of the best young players within world football, built a team with Jurgen Klopp's style of play, and if we're being honest with that Liverpool team, they could have won multiple European Cups, Premier Leagues, and arguably they should have done, but they didn't win multiple. They won one of each. But that's just another name, and people say the sort of Maldini rumours and things like that. The Maldini rumours are a little bit different based upon that Maldini himself anyway, wants to stay based within Italy with his family due to personal circumstances currently right now. So he's not actively looking for another football job. Whereas with Paul Mitchell, on the other hand, he's already moved back to I can't remember if it was Chester. I think it's Chester anyway, just outside on the outskirts of Manchester anyway, which is where his family are based in Northwest anyway. So it would be a perfect role for Paul Mitchell if he lands the sporting director's job at United. But again, like I say, the door's open for Ineos, and the way that it will work is that they have time on their side. So if they come into United, the way that it will work is they want to run a 60-day audit of Manchester United, or if they see fit as soon as they walk through the door that John Murtaugh's not in place and not the right person to run the football side of United, even for their 60 days that they review the club, they'll remove him. They might replace him with an interim. That might be, and yeah, listen, it won't be music to a lot of Manchester United fans' ears. It might be a case of you had Darren Fletcher step in the role for 60 days, just until they find somebody to replace him with. But those 60 days afterwards, it will be a wait, but it will be worth the wait, because the person that Ineos decide to bring in is the person that they have full faith in to run the football operations. And that's all they have control over within this football club. So they have to make it work. So, like I say, there's Michael Edwards and Julian Ward who ran Liverpool's football operations. You know the duo from there. Paul Mitchell's another one that we just mentioned in the market. The Crystal Palace sporting director, who was only appointed 2 years ago, in Dougie Friedman, for example, who's a brilliant, sort of scout and philosopher of young players, especially within England, the likes of Michael Elise, Eberi Eze, for example, Mark Gahey. He's had a lot of influential parts in those players' careers up until now, but he doesn't have the track record of a Mitchell or of a Michael Edwards on the world scale. But it depends what way that Ineos want to look at it, because they might go down the same model that Chelsea did with Todd Bowley, where you bring in 2 or 3 sporting directors. They brought because the way that Chelsea brought it, they brought in Stewart, Winstanley, and Vival. They brought in 3 sporting directors, effectively, 2 from Brighton's network, and then also they brought in Christian Vival from the Red Bull network. So they brought in 3 football directors, and Christian Vival's already left since, but they brought in 3 until they could actually properly get a grip of how they wanted to run the football operations. So it might be as simple as that Paul Mitchell might come in, as he's rumoured to be the guy that Ineos want the most out of every name that's out there. If he's to come in, it might be that he comes in with, for example, a Dougie Freeman. But Dougie Freeman might be Paul Mitchell's chief scout. It might be as simple as that. And he looks for the talent for Mitchell based upon the players that Erik ten Hag won. But there's a lot of questions, because it's not just the football director that will be in question. Erik ten Hag as the manager will be in question, because Richard Arnold isn't Ineos' CEO. He isn't their choice for CEO. John Murtough isn't their choice for football director. So it's only probably fair, in the same category, that Erik ten Hag will be looked at as, you're not our manager.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't appoint you. And look, like you say, you can have Mitchell or somebody come in. They might look at the way that Erik ten Hag plays football or wants to make his team play and think, I don't believe in this. This isn't my way of looking at football. I think football should be played another way, and XYZ coach is the way that I want to take this club forward. And at the end of the day, there's going to be contingencies on a lot of the deals, but it all depends on the structure of how Ineos want to go about it. So if they want to make United a success, they'll want as much football experience in the football ranks at United. And the best way that you can do that is make multiple sporting appointments. Not one sporting director, but like, for example, the way that Murtough was brought in, he was brought in as director of football, but also alongside Darren Fletcher as technical director. So it might be you have Mitchell and somebody else come in. But at this current point in time anyway, Paul Mitchell's the guy that Ineos have looked at previously in the past, and it just so happens that he lives local to Manchester currently right now and resides where his family is from in Northwest. It kind of makes sense to make that appointment. And also, he's one of the most world-renowned sporting directors that you can get on the market as a free agent. So it makes a lot of sense to go for someone like a Paul Mitchell.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And big up the chat. Big up 20. We've got 22 watching, 20 likes. So thanks for that. I don't know what's happening to my YouTube count viewer thing. It seems to be messed up recently. So which is a bit odd. But there you go. That's YouTube for you. So it's literally just one of those things. But if you want to support the channel, obviously drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and consider becoming a member as well, as I try and continue with this fan channel. I want to just quickly big up Stephanie as well. It's in the chat as well as bringing big up Stephanie. I really appreciate you. I'm just going to go to Jarvis's. He had 2 questions. I'm just going to just quickly start them. So I think the first thing he said is, so Jim Ratcliffe expect to lean on Sir Alex Ferguson for advice and guidance of some matters. That can include helping choose a new director of football. Is that good news or bad news?
If I had to base it on from sort of a fan's perspective, I think it's bad news. The last time Sir Alex Ferguson made a recommendation, he recommended David Moyes.
Yeah.
So you can look at it from 2 ways about it, but the way that I look at this is let the guy live the rest of his life out.
Is he like? It's like he's 80 something now.
I think he's 81 currently right now. Anyway, I mean, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's not a spring chicken. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's 71 years old as well.
Yeah.
But even like with Sir Alex Ferguson, let the guy live his life. He's just lost his wife. He's also just lost one of the most influential people that he's ever had within his life, into Bobby Charlton.
Bobby Charlton,
give the guy a break at the end of the day. So if Ratcliffe does come in and he leans on Sir Alex Ferguson for advice and guidance, personally, I don't think he has to, because he's got a lot of people around him that he trusts within football matters anyway. The likes of, for example, Sir Dave Brailsford, who is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. If you want to say Sir Jim Ratcliffe's right-hand man, Sir Dave Brailsford's the exact person. And Brailsford, his mindset, if nobody's ever watched the episode anyway, there's a YouTube channel called A Diary of a CEO. Anybody who wants, honestly, go and watch the episode of it with Sir Dave Brailsford, and you'll learn the sort of mindset and the figure that Manchester United would have as a member on its board, because Sir Dave Brailsford is expected to be a board member, but also he was expected to be the guy that's going to run the football audit around Manchester United for 60 days. So effectively, he's the eyes and ears inside United, and then report back to Ratcliffe and Ineos and say, this needs to change, that needs to change. But the one thing with Brailsford is he's a winner. He doesn't compete. He doesn't go into anything to compete. He goes in to win. That's the difference. So if he doesn't see something that he likes, he points it out, clear as day, and he says, this is the solution. So in terms of with your question, Jarvis, so Jim Ratcliffe leaning on Sir Alex Ferguson, it makes sense because of the legendary figure he is within Manchester United's history, but in the same breath of fresh air, he doesn't necessarily have to, because he's got people around him that he believes in who know their stuff about sport and football, which is Sir Dave Brailsford. He doesn't have a major influence within football, but within sports, he's a massive advocate for. So in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's case, he might just let Sir Alex Ferguson, listen, you're always going to have Sir Alex Ferguson stands. You're always going to have your seat at Old Trafford. You're always going to be the club ambassador at Manchester United, but that's all I want you to be. I don't want you to be involved in the football club. And there's no 2 ways of looking about it. I would say that's a good thing if he comes in and says that I don't necessarily want Ferguson involved within the running or the options within United. Just based upon, you've given enough for this football club, and you should be given the opportunity to enjoy what you've done for us, and also be praised by what you're going to see for the years to come. But let us do the work, Sir Alex, not you. That's the difference of how it should be. And if Sir Jim Ratcliffe's really any kind of man, although he's only 10 years behind Sir Alex Ferguson in age, let the guy live a little. So at the end of the day, give him a reprieve and let him have his life for the last couple of years of his life, because he won't be here forever, unfortunately.
No,
but
he won't.
With Ferguson, he's the only leading light and soul that's left of United's history. The Busby Babes was ripped out of Manchester United. Bobby Charlton's gone. So Ferguson really is the last man standing out of all of that pyramid. So he's the only guy really that has that legendary status left within United. So let him live by that, not live internally within the football club.
And then follow-up question that Jarvis says, Why assume that Joel Glazer will stop intervening just because Jim Ratcliffe provides funds? Joel's actions suggest it's not solely about money. Otherwise, he would have learned to step back. So I guess it's in reference to the fact that Joel Glazer is apparently supposed to be on the board alongside Sir Jim and potentially will have a say. And so as such, potentially override things. And what do you think about that, Tom?
Well, the way that the sort of panel and board will be is that you'll have two co-chairmen, which will be Sir Jim Ratcliffe. When his 25% gets ratified by the Premier League, he will be a director within United, but he has to pass the owners and directors test for him to then be on that panel and board. So effectively, until his deal gets ratified by the Premier League, he won't be a executive director. He will just be a director. So he won't have the same paneling control within United that should, for example, Joel Glazer has right now as being a co-chairman. So effectively, what you will have is you will have a three-man board that will lead the actual, if you like, the ownership group between the partnership between the Glazer family and INEOS. And those three people will be Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who will be co-chairmen, and then you will have an executive director, which will be Sir Dave Brailsford, or is expected to be Sir Dave Brailsford. So the way that INEOS will look at that is the decision making that they want to make on that level. As soon as the Premier League passed Sir Jim Ratcliffe to be a director within United, because that's what he's coming in to be, not an owner because he's not buying the full club at this point in time, but a director. So as soon as that part of the test is passed and clarified, the way that it will work is that you have Joel Glazer, who will represent predominantly the family, and then you will have Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Dave Brailsford, who will be Ineos's people. So the way that they'll portray it is it's 2v1. The family own the football club, but any decision that wants to be made internally within United, Ineos will have the say over. And the way that it works currently within Manchester United right now is you have 12 board members within United. I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 of them are Glazer family members who sway more towards a decision made by the family. So whenever a decision's made internally at the football club, they go to a vote as to say what they think's best for United as whole directors. And 8 versus the remaining 4, if the family are pushing and want something, all 8 of them will go and side with the family. So then the family get their overall decision that they want. In this case with Ineos, it will be the opposite. Ineos, because they own the football side of the club, they can employ their own board.
Okay.
The family have to have legally 4 representatives of the ownership because they're the majority owners. So legally, you'll have to have Joel Glazer there. You'll have to have maybe Avram Glazer, a representative of them, which might be, say, Patrick Stewart, who's currently the interim CEO, and then you might have somebody else, which could have been Richard Arnold in this case, but it's not going to be anymore. So then Ineos will structure the board, which will favour them. If they bring Jean-Claude Blanc, that's their guy. He's going to favour Ineos's decisions. Ratcliffe will be on the board. Brailsford will be. There's 3 of them already. Then you want to bring in Paul Mitchell. Well, Paul Mitchell's going to side with his employers on the football department. There's 4. Then if Paul Mitchell wants to bring in a technical director with him, which could be someone like a Dougie Freeman, there's 5. Suddenly, you get the gist of where I'm coming from. The Ineos numbers, when they want to vote for anything, whether it's a player, a deal, anything, will go in their favour rather than the families. So it's not as simple as that Joe Glazer has to sign off on everything and he vetoes everything. The football operations, if it goes under the sporting control element, will be with Ratcliffe. If it goes with the family, and like for example, the sporting control is not as tight as it is, yeah, Joe Glazer will have the final say probably on most things. But if the sporting controls to the pinpoint where Ratcliffe has overall control of that, and the family basically just run the commercials of the club and the revenues, then every single decision that will be made from that point onwards when the deal gets passed and ratified by the Premier League, it's basically Sir Jim Ratcliffe's football club. But the Glazer family just run and control the brand, which they're happy to do because they've always made money that way from United as it is. They've never had a problem making money. It's always been the football side. So to pass it off to somebody else, honestly, it will almost feel like probably a godsend to them.
I can imagine. So yeah, final thoughts, because we're not, because it won't be an hour. So and I need to go to bed actually. So, but I thank you so much, Tom, for just giving us, for coming on and just giving us all a bit of clarity as to what's been going on, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. Obviously, there's a lot of, as in this community, because obviously, a lot in the community wanted Qatar, and there's a lot of mistrust of Sir Jim. So I just guess, final thoughts, final comments about the whole situation. I guess this is probably more leading towards January, because obviously, we're looking at this season. United aren't doing particularly well. We've got Everton, Newcastle, and Galatasaray away. We're in a bit difficult state. Is there anything that you think that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, new football structure, will be able to do or achieve this season, whether it's the January transfer window or then some, or is this season effectively like a write-off as far as that's concerned?
If I'm being honest, the way that big European football clubs work, and this is just on par with it, Manchester United are not an exception, even in these circumstances. They normally plan 2 transfer windows in advance. So the way that football clubs work is, for example, when they was in this summer's window, they already have next summer planned. That's how they normally work. And if they're going to do any business in January, they already have it planned. So if Ratcliffe comes in, he could bring him. If he brings in Paul Mitchell straight away, he might have 2 months. Then, effectively, he might have the rest of November and all of December to get all of the people in principle that he wants in place, build a relationship with Erik ten Hag to know the players that he wants to play his certain way, and then it's almost as if to say, right, Paul Mitchell, go and find us some players. If they make the right sort of price points in January for us to buy them, then we'll buy them. If not, the best solution for United then, really, if they miss out on January, it's going to affect the season, absolutely. Because on the field, they need reinforcements. I think that's clear to see. But if they don't get those players now, it gives INEOS, their new sporting director that they're expecting to bring in, their CEO, a full year, effectively, to get everything in place to then make a success of the next summer window, which is a lot bigger, and you can do a lot more business in that summer window. So you can, effectively, on the football side, INEOS can put their stamp on the club. It's easier to do it then than it is now. And the even bigger point that INEOS will have to hurdle around is still the FFP issue that United have. Because FFP with United, they had to sell 4 young players and send 2 of them on loan just to cover to get Sophie and Amrabat on loan from Fiorentina for a season with an option to buy. That's how strict United were on the FFP charges, or close to them anyway. And the way that it will work in January is, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe, like he said, is coming in to put in £245 million of his own money into the infrastructure, that takes weight off of United, because you have an owner, or in his case, a director, that's coming in with his own money and is going to impact Manchester United internally, which frees up a little bit of wiggle room. If I'm being honest, you're putting £245 million into infrastructure, and providing it does go towards that, it might free up maybe 20 million. But £20 million in January probably isn't going to buy you the world-class player that you need right here and now. It might buy you a project player from, South America or Asia, for example, if you want to dive into those pools for maybe one of their best young players out there. But it won't get you a renowned player that you want. But like I say, it all depends on the timescale and timing frame that INEOS and Ratcliffe get through the door, and they have the control buttons within their hands. If it doesn't come down to it, if it comes down to it, you might just have another January window where you effectively are controlled by the Glazer family, But from that summer window onwards, that's where you'll see Ineos's impact. But by that summer window, theoretically, they should have everybody in place that they want. CEO, director of football. So at the end of the day, based on what we see on the field now as Manchester United fans, myself being included, one of them, absolutely we need players in. We need reinforcements. But the budget, even with Ratcliffe, before Ratcliffe was even coming in, was tight. And even after he comes in, he doesn't free up enough money to make an impact as it is anyway. And that's no fault, even if people want to criticise it or not, that's no fault of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He didn't cause this problem. The Glazer family have caused this problem because of the years and years of neglect. So the frustration of if you don't get the players that you want in January probably shouldn't be aimed at Sir Jim Ratcliffe because he's not in control of that. He's only in control probably onwards of that summer. So that's when I would say if you want to judge him based upon his decisions, judge him by that point. But you need time to plan. That's the problem. And time, if like you were saying, G, going towards January, time is not on their side. They don't have the sporting director that they want. They don't have the CEO that they want. And right now, they don't even own a percentage of Manchester United. So you can't plan anything when you don't even. You're not even an investor at this point in time. You're not even a stakeholder. So effectively, you're planning nothing. But United anyway will have already had a plan in place for January and the next summer. Whether Ratcliffe and Ineos want to follow that plan that they have in place, who knows? But if we're basing it off of that, they will bring in their own football director and get rid of and replace John Murtough. The plans of of that January and summer window will probably change. So it's anybody's game and anybody's guess. But if I'm being honest, I wouldn't expect anything like what Chelsea did, where blow £300 or £400 million in a January window.
Yeah,
it's far away from ever that happening.
Well, speaking of that, and this is the final thing. What are your thoughts on the whole? And it's obviously not related to United, but obviously Everton got docked the points, and obviously there's the investigation to Chelsea and Manchester City. What are your thoughts on the likelihood that likes of Chelsea and City are going to get some form of punishment, or still going to be investigated, or what's going to happen with them?
Well, the Chelsea charges, to be fair to in Manchester City's case, the Chelsea charges that have come to light are actually a lot more easier to prove than the Manchester City charges are. And the reason why I say that is Roman Abramovich made illicit payments through a holding company to football agents. In particular, at the time, Eden Hazard's football agent, when he was a young player at Lille, and he had 5 top European football clubs after him, which were Chelsea, who were one of them, Manchester United was one of them, Liverpool was another, Real Madrid were looking at him as a young protege player, and then you also had the emergence of Juventus at that time, who were looking at him. So he had 5 top European clubs looking at him, and all it took was a €8 million transaction to his football agent to say, give so much portion of this as a salary stake to the player, almost like a salary bonus, if you a sign-on bonus to join us, but it's off the books. So you as the agent pocket money, but also we get this young player that we want. And Eden Hazard at Chelsea, well, everybody knows the success of a player that he was there. So effectively, the way that it was with Chelsea is Roman Abramovich made illicit payments to a football agent. That's not allowed in anywhere within world football. And you can look at it for what it is. It happens every day. Players get tapped up in the modern day game of football, but they don't get tapped up by finances. That's the way. That's the difference. So it's a lot easier to prove based upon that. If, for example, as a news outlet, if the Athletic have obtained the information and the evidence that Roman Abramovich made illicit payments to football agents, in particular Eden Hazard's football agent at that time when they signed him, if the Athletic have it, then the Premier League will have it. And the Premier League, in the case like they've done with Everton, the way that their deals worked was the charges with Everton is they failed to declare the amount of money that they was paying for their overall wage structure. to comply with FFP, but also they failed to make the payments on building their new stadium and the costing projects of that. Therefore, because they failed to regulate it accurately with the Premier League, they've been punished because of it. But that shouldn't be on Everton fans. That's the thing that I don't feel happy about. And I do feel a little bit of sympathy is it's not the fans' fault. It's the directors and the owners at Everton that have caused that. Because they've not balanced the books, or not balanced the books, sorry, but they've not shown the books and the accounts properly, which means now that they, as a football club, have effectively been punished. And now the relegated clubs from last season, Leeds, Leicester, and Southampton, can now pursue legal charges for loss of income revenue based upon that they got relegated from the Premier League. So they've lost millions. They could effectively put Everton Football Club in administration should they sue them for the charges, which on a maximum scale can go up to £300 million, which on the scale of a club like Everton is hefty. Very, very hefty. And considering that they've just signed an agreement where a new ownership group is going to come in, so 77 Partners, if they come in now and they pay this structure, they've got a £300 million debt that they have to pay basically to other football clubs. And they've still got to run their football club. And on top of that, they've got to build a new stadium. That's a lot of money. Hell of a lot of money. So the Chelsea one is a lot easier to prove a sense of guilt. Now, if you're engaging in terms of punishment, UEFA, I can't remember, I think it was 4 years ago, they fined Chelsea Football Club, I think it was €20 million for not accurately, can't remember what it was. I think it was about the accounts records for when they sold young players from their academy to European football clubs, but they didn't accurately. They didn't accurately show when their figures for those young players were going to be paid to them from other clubs. That was how it worked. So effectively, they illicitly sold young players. Was the way that I can't remember off the top of my head anyway, because it was a couple of years ago, but that's roughly how I remember it vividly. In this case with Abramovich, it's so much severe because the fairity of that is gone. It's legally a stronghold, and even more so, you could get Roman Abramovich effectively what he's done within football terms. Not within football terms, sorry. Within business terms, he's committed fraud. It almost as if you just pay somebody off. Pay somebody off, you get what you want. That is how it has worked. So if the Premier League have anything about them, if you're giving Everton Football Club, because they failed to accurately show the amount of money it was taking to cost to build their stadium and failed to show the salaries that they were paying players in total packages, if you're giving them 10 points deductions for that, Chelsea for committing basically football fraud, relegate them.
Wow.
The Scottish Football Association, no, you say wow, G, but the Scottish Football Association relegated Rangers 4 divisions. 4 divisions. They got rid of the Old Firm derby for 4 years, effectively. The rivalry within Glasgow in Scotland of Rangers v Celtic was gone for 4 years because they demoted them all the way down the pyramid. And Rangers have only recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, recovered from that. That's how big of a setback that is. And the Manchester City ones, don't even get me started, 115 charges against financial irregularities. If I'm being honest with you, Everton's charges are based upon 3 accounts. So when people say, why is it taking so long to investigate Manchester City, put it this way, 3 charges in the way that Everton have been done can take up to, say, a month to 2 months to fully investigate and then verdict on. 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 3 months at a push. That's for 3 charges. Manchester City have 115 that need investigating. Some of them range from minuscule, which in many cases is failure to make payments to football agents on time, is one of the charges. Or on a bigger scale, failure to accurately declare sponsorship revenue income from Etihad Airways. On an even bigger scale, failure to declare current manager in 2014-2015 season, Roberto Mancini, payments to a club in Abu Dhabi. But he was Manchester City manager. Can you please show us why Roberto Mancini was seen on an Etihad touchline in Manchester, but he was supposedly getting paid by a football club in Abu Dhabi? How does that make sense? So the Premier League charges, and put it this way, out of 115 charges, I would find it very hard that City will get every single one of them ratified and closed. I would, if I'm being fair, I'd say at least you've got a good chance of at least 20 of them being true. Some of them will be true, but it depends which ones are severe. If the severe ones are true, honestly, with Manchester City, do the exact same thing that I've said with Chelsea. Relegate them. Don't relegate. And I'm not doing this pushing about, because if it was Manchester United, I'd be saying the exact same thing. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. The one thing that you can take away from Manchester City, and the one thing that I would say, even when people say you should strip them of the titles, leave the titles there. Leave the titles, because the one thing that you can do there, that Aguero goal that killed so many dreams of Manchester United fans. That doesn't have the same meaning anymore.
Give us our trophies back, man. No, Tom, I'll even go for it. Give us those trophies, man. I'm shameless like that. Like, those trophies don't belong to you, man. Like, give them back.
Well, G, put it this way: if they give the trophies back, Liverpool will have more Premier Leagues than Manchester United. So they get two more off of this title races that they had with City that they lost out on. So there's three more.
But won't it be to the duration that they were investigated? Because these charges only go up to, like, what is it? They're not like recent. I think it's like before.
They go from 2011 to 2020. So over the 9 years.
2020. I thought it was just literally just before Pep. So like all of so I think
that's why I said to you about with the Roberto Mancini charges. It goes before Pep Guardiola as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying the scale of the overall charges.
Okay.
You can go as far back as the Aguero goal to 2020 when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then they failed to make the payments and charges. And in 2020, in COVID times, they had allegations made against them by UEFA.
Yeah.
So you've already been investigated effectively by two of the biggest football directors and governing bodies in world football, Premier League and UEFA. And the one thing anyway with the Premier League is
if City get punished and they get relegated like this, Pep will definitely walk. The players will walk. It's over.
Absolutely, yeah.
Over City. That's the difference between City and like even in terms of City fans. It's like the difference between your club and others is that your club will be finished if you guys get relegated. You know, like other clubs of history with a lot of history long. If United got relegated, United aren't finished. They'll come back. Maybe not as strong, but the money, the families, it'll be there. If City get relegated, they basically cease to exist as a football club, as far as I'm concerned, or they become at least the equivalent of a Leeds or Middlesbrough. You know, Jarvis says, Tom, don't you think City and Chelsea will push for the Super League if faced with demotion?
No, not based upon, not more towards Chelsea anyway, because with Chelsea, when Todd Bowley and Clear Lake went into Chelsea, this is a fun fact that people don't actually know. They declared to the Premier League that there was irregularities under Roman Abramovich's ownership of Manchester United. So, as many people say, they basically self-reported themselves. They said under the previous ownership there was irregularities within the finances, but we're just declaring this to you now. So, if any decisions are made on Chelsea, that has to be taken into account that they declared it. But they are the new owners. They're not Roman Abramovich. So the way Todd Bowley and Clear Lake will declare it is, well, if we didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known anyway. So we effectively have helped you with your inquiry and your investigation. So take it easy on us. So in Chelsea's case, it might be that they might just go down to the Championship. It might be that they get, major points deductions to the point where you scrap all of the points for this season. It could be as far back as that. But with Chelsea, like I was saying before, it's a lot easier to prove the Chelsea allegations based upon the way and the elicitation of who has the information currently right now. So the Premier League must have the same evidence and the same information, maybe even more detailed. But if we're basing it off of Chelsea, this Chelsea dispute anyway might get sorted out by the end of the season, and you might have a declaration by then, depending on how many charges the Premier League want to bring against them, because there isn't a number. It's just an allegation at this point in time. With Manchester City, as I was saying before, they have 115 charges hanging over their head. And if Everton's, like I was saying before, with 3 charges takes 2 or 3 months, you can guarantee how long Manchester City's investigation is going to take. Years. Between 2, maybe 3 years to fully investigate every single charge by charge by charge. And then it just depends on how many they get proven guilty of and how many they can prove wrong of. And they won't be able to prove all 15 wrong. And the way that it works within the Premier League, just as I was about to say before anyway, is that with the Premier League's regulations, when the independent panel make a declaration and a verdict on financial irregularities within football and the Premier League, there's no appeal. There's no appeal process. Everton's, the way that theirs works is, because their declaration is within last season, they can appeal because it's within 12 months of last season's final ball being kicked on the final day of the season. With Manchester City's case, these allegations date back to, like I was saying, 2011. So that time bar to appeal of 12 months doesn't exist, and it doesn't apply to Manchester City. So if they get charged with something from 2011, put it politely, they're fucked. They can't get out of it. There's no way of appealing it. The decision that's made, if they have to relegate them from the Premier League completely, goes straight away. And like you were saying before, G, they would cease to amaze as a football club. And that's why when I was saying before about if you take the titles away from them, even if you don't, I don't really think it makes much of a difference. Because they ain't going to win a Premier League anytime soon, maybe for at least 4 years, while they're all the way down in maybe League 2 or the Conference. The best manager in world football will have walked away from them. Most of the directors will probably resign in shame.
Yeah.
Sheikh Mansour, God forbid, he might sell the football club.
He might.
So suddenly that Aguero goal, and you've got all these statues of all these legendary players outside that football club. The company goal that went in against Leicester City, which won them the league title that season. Like, all of these big moments in their history as a football club will mean nothing. Yeah, they will exist, but they'll be tainted. And I think those, this is my personal opinion anyway, those being tainted is better than them being taken away. Because taken away, it's almost as if, oh, right, well, you can just forget about it now. No, we've always wanted it to be a talking point. That Aguero goal that you criticised and that you used as a hatred against Manchester United for years, it means fuck all. Because in that year, you broke the rules. And you broke the rules and you only beat us by a point. And we didn't cheat as Manchester United, but you did, and you only beat us by a point. Shame on you. Shame on you. And that's the problem. And at the end of the day, with Manchester City's allegations, I'd be very shocked if they get away with all 115. But it depends on how many of the charges are severe in comparison to not severe. Because the not severe ones, G, might be as simple as £30,000 fine, which to Manchester City is, put it politely, peanuts.
Yeah, it's nothing.
But if it goes as far as, like I was saying before, the payments regarding the sponsorship deal with Etihad Airways, that's a bigger deal. because that's multi-millions that you're dealing with there. In the same way with Mancini, that's multi-millions to an employee, your current manager at that tenure. And if you can't prove those allegations wrong, you can get, like you say, the most severe punishment. You relegate them from the whole competition. And the way that they've gone about it with Everton, anyway, with the points deduction, the Everton charges in comparison to Chelsea's or Manchester City's is piece of piss. It's not. If you put it on a crossing lights, the Everton charges are a green light. Chelsea's one, I would say, is about an amber light on a traffic light. And Manchester City's, they're on the red light. They are on the red light. They are on the top of the mountain, 115 charges. So, with those as a football club, it is absolutely pessimistic to think that Manchester City are going to get away with all 15. And the ones that they don't get away with, as we were saying before, there's no appeal process for them if they date back all that way. So they will have to hold whatever charges that they have. And that will be the biggest scandal within world football.
No.
Put it this way, G. If it was Manchester United, if it was Arsenal, or if it was Liverpool, one of the big three historical clubs in this country, you would never hear about Sir Alex Ferguson's success of United. You would never hear about the influential figures that Liverpool had at the time.
No.
You will never hear about Arsene Wenger's tenure of Arsenal and the success that he had. All of those would have been tainted. So why should Manchester City be given a pass? They shouldn't.
Preach, Tom, man. Preach. That is literally, that's all I'm gonna say, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Right. Thanks for that, guys. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow. Tom, obviously, you're welcome to join. We'll be doing a brief either tomorrow or Tuesday. I'm not confirmed, but tomorrow pending, but it might be Tuesday. We're going to be doing a brief mid-season review where we're going to kind of look at the season so far, talk about the injury crisis. There's obviously news that Luke Shaw's obviously going to be coming back and it's going to be available to face Everton, which is good news. So we'll just have a brief Tom's gone. A brief update regarding that as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, We Are United X, and smash the notification button. Play the Manchester United news. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace out. Peace.